Today I'm building two wooden crates, one beginner, one pro. I'm using pallet wood for the beginner build, which you could make with just a handsaw and a hammer and some nails. And I'm building the pro version from oak with stronger joinery and furniture grade finish. Both are perfect for gift hampers, firewood or just general storage. One's cheap and accessible and the other one is made to last. Let's get started with the pallet wood one. I'm cutting this to size on my miter saw, but if you don't have one, a circular saw or even a handsaw would do the job. With the boards cut to length, I give them a quick sand to clean them up a bit. Nothing major though, as this is a rustic design. For the upright pieces, I'm using some 3x2 CLS timber, and I start by attaching the shorter end pieces to the uprights flush with the corner. I use glue and some crown staples to assemble this, but you could also use a hammer and nails to keep this really basic. Once both end pieces were assembled, I overlapped the longer boards to join the two pieces together. With that done, it was time to add the base. I use glue and screws for this to give it a little bit more strength if it's loaded with weight. If you do this, make sure you pre-drill the wood to prevent it splitting. I added some rope handles to the ends by drilling a 16mm hole, threading the rope through, and then because this rope was too thick to tie knots in easily, I actually screwed it to the wood using some washers to lock it in place. Ideally, I would have used some other coloured tape than this fetching red. And here is the finished result. A nice rustic crate that is really versatile, and you can make this really quickly and easily for little to no money. Next up, let's take it up a level and make the pro version using some oak. I got rough sawn boards, so I'm going to need to mill these up. I cut these slightly oversized initially to make sure that the cuts were all square at the ends after milling. I used my planer thicknesser to flatten one face, then square up one edge, and then ran all the boards through the thicknesser to size them. Then finally I cut a parallel edge on the table saw, which left each board square on all four sides. After that I gave each board a quick sand down to remove any of the planer knife marks. I've just sharpened these knives because they did leave quite a few marks and burns on this project. Now that the boards were milled and squared, I could cut them to their final lengths on the miter saw. I then ripped down some pieces to make the uprights for the crates, and then added a chamfer onto one side of these. For the handles on this one, I'm going to be cutting some hand holes. I marked up the position, and then I used a Forstner bit to drill a hole at either end. And then I connected these using a jigsaw. To sand these cuts, I'm using my oscillating bobbin sander, which did a great job of cleaning things up. To lose the sharp corners, I rounded over the inside and the outside of the handholds. For the joinery, I'm cutting some rebates in the longer boards. I mark these up using the adjoining board and then cut these using the depth stop on the miter saw. I made an MDF template to mark the holes to drill, and then used a drill press with the depth set to cut larger holes that will be used to house the plugs later. Most of the cuts were pretty decent, but I cleaned up a couple of them with a chisel. Then it was time to glue and screw each tier together. The joints slot together nicely and pretty much guarantee to keep things square, but it's always worth checking this. I added chamfers to all of the boards on the router table, including the bottom slats, which will be fitted shortly. I used a couple of offcuts to make some battens that will hold these base pieces in place and pre-drilled these and glued and screwed them to the bottom tier of the crate. Each bottom slat then got glued and brad nailed into place. Then it was time for the rest of the assembly. I first marked up and pre-drilled each upright for the top and the bottom of the crate, and then I glued and screwed these onto the base. I could then slot the middle tier in place, followed by the top, which got glued and screwed. I then made an MDF spacer to evenly space the middle board, and then pre-drilled and screwed this into place. Originally, I'd planned on using spalted beech to plug the screw holes, but when I cut a couple of test plugs, they didn't fit well, so I changed to this hardwood dowel. Because the holes were roughly 11mm, I had to buy 12mm dowel, and then I'm putting this into my drill press and sanding this down to fit the holes. In the end, this worked out great. I used my palm router to flush these up, then for any that had any sorts of gaps I added some glue and pushed in some of the sanding dust that I'd collected from sanding the dowels. Then I gave everything a final sand ready for finish. I'm using Danish oil for this. It's quite a tough finish and it's one I quite like to use on oak as it deepens the colour nicely. With a few coats applied, I added a final layer of my beeswax oil finish to give it some extra protection and a soft touch feel. Then screwed on some small rubber feet and this pro version was done. I'm over the moon with this one and hopefully my mum likes it too as it's part of her Christmas. If you want to check out more beginner versus pro videos, check them out on screen or in the description. And as always, thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one.